everyone, welcome to Wonderful Wednesday. So today we are going to be looking at English and guided reading. But first of all, I just want to say I hope you're all safe and well and that you enjoyed yesterday's lesson on images and captions. So far, the work has been amazing. You're sending me in just brilliant stuff. I'm really pleased to see the effort that you're all putting into your work. It's just been brilliant, and getting all your emails, all your messages on Purple Mash and on the blogs has just been fantastic. So it's really, really good to see so much interaction from all of you. So today's quote of the day is, "The beautiful thing about learning is that no one can take it away from you." So once you know, it's in your brain and nobody can take that away from you. Okay, so it's really, really important to keep working hard because knowledge is power. Knowledge is amazing. Okay, so for today's lesson, you are going to need chapter 6 of your Purple Mash text, chapter 6 of your multiple choice to-dos, an exercise book or lined paper, a pen, a pencil, a ruler, and lots of concentration. So I'm going to pause the video here, or you're going to pause the video here, and go and grab those things that you need. So today's date is Wednesday, the 6th of May 2020, and we are doing a guided reading task. Our learning intention is to show a good understanding of the story. So if we pause the video here, write the LI and the date and underline it. Okay, so in this chapter, you're going to see a lot of action and just to see how the authorities fought against the women who were in the suffragettes. And we're also going to see the strength of the women and how far they're willing to go to fight for their beliefs. Okay, so your first task is to read chapter 6 and complete the multiple choice questions. Keep on submitting your work and emailing me your longer comprehension questions, okay, which we're going to look at on the next slide. So pause the video here, go and read chapter 6 and complete the to-dos. Okay, hope you found that okay and that you've submitted your work so we can see how you're getting on. So now we're going to move on to our longer comprehension questions. And remember, you need to email them to us at year6@grange.harrow.sch.uk. So these are our 5 questions. They're all the information can be found in the chapter. Remember, you need to answer them in full sentences and you need to use evidence from the text where relevant. Number 5, as usual, is your opinion. Okay, so we're just going to go through the answers now. So let's see how well you've done. So number 1, the ladies from Edith's class were expecting a fight at the rally. Name 2 things they did to prepare themselves. So remember, Edith was the jiu-jitsu teacher that was teaching them how to do self-defense, and the ladies were in her class, and our 3 characters stumbled upon that class in the last chapter and were really intrigued to find out more. Okay, so they've been doing some training for a while and then they enter the class one day and they see that these women are quite worked up and they're doing different things to from the jiu-jitsu exercises. They're actually preparing for something. So this was quite an easy question because there was actually more than 2 things in the text. So some women were helping others tie sheets of cardboard around their bodies like body armor, and others were hiding bats, whips and clubs under their skirts, and some were spooning flour into paper bags to use as flour bombs. So there's lots of description there, and there's definitely more than 2 things there that the women were doing to prepare themselves for the rally. Okay, number 2. The first to speak was the government minister, but no sooner had he begun his speech than the women began heckling him. Why did the women have no respect for the government minister? So I just want to explain that word heckling. Heckling is when you are in a crowd and if somebody is talking or speaking in front of you doing a speech and you start making fun of them and calling them names and being very disrespectful to them, that is what is known as heckling. So the women decided to heckle the government minister because they disagreed with what he was saying and they felt like he was not putting his words into action, okay, and he was making false promises and they were not being listened to, they were not being taken seriously. So that is why they heckled him. So number 3, Look at the paragraph beginning from the back. Find 2 words or phrases that suggest the stewards handled the Scottish women roughly. So I've kind of just copied the section of the text that you need to be looking at, and I've underlined the words and the phrases that will be useful. So he grabbed hold of her, he smothered her with his hands, and smothered her mouth with his hands, and there was a noisy scuffle. A scuffle is kind of like a fight almost, but it's where she's trying to get away and then he's stopping her from getting away from her. So that is what the scuffle was. So there's 3 examples there that you can use. And number 4 was, why was there a huge cheer when Mrs. Pankhurst stood up to speak? So remember, she was the leader of the suffragettes. She was the reason why these women were arguing and fighting, because they believed in what she said as their leader, that they deserved the right to vote. So for them, she was their hero. Okay, number 5. Look at the paragraph beginning, she had scarcely. The ladies from Edith's class acted violently towards the police officers. Do you think their actions were acceptable? And give your reasons. Now, I've left that purposely blank without an answer because this is your opinion. Do you think that they did the right thing? Or do you think, actually, no, they could have acted in a better way? Using violence isn't the answer. So you decide that one, and I would love to see your answers on that. So please send me through your answers on email or on Purple Mash, sending answers in the blog. It will be really, really great to see what you thought. I hope you did well on that. Make sure you give yourself a tick or do the corrections as needed. Okay, we're going to now move on to our English lesson. And again, you are going to write the date, Wednesday the 6th of May 2020, and your LI is to select words and language drawing on their knowledge of literacy features and formal and informal writing. Okay, literary features. Success criteria. I can write a strong introductory paragraph that will make people want to read on. I will use short and snappy sentences. I can use and identify the 5 W's in an introductory paragraph. Okay, so we are going to be looking at introductions to our newspaper articles. We're going to be identifying those 5 W's, and we are going to link that to our suffragette writing as well. So we have now created a headline and we've thought about images and captions. And now we are going to go into our beginning of our newspaper reports. So today we are going to touch on writing a little bit, but not fully. So this is more about identifying the different structure that we need for a newspaper report. So we are slowly creating the structure for our newspaper article. So our final end of unit piece of writing that we need. And we are basing the content on the events of today's chapter. So our newspaper article is going to be about the meeting in the village hall, the rally, and the resulting outburst from the suffragette women. And that is going to be the focus of our report. Okay, so the actions between the action that was happening in the chapter and the events that continued where the police took away the suffragette women, where the Scottish suffragette lady was actually manhandled by the police officer. So all of that is going to be included in our report. So today we're going to analyse introductory paragraphs of a range of articles, and you are going to identify the 5 W's in each one. Okay, so I'm going to do an example first, and then we are going to continue. So this is an example of what I would like you to do. I have used an introductory paragraph about an article based on the astronaut Tim Peake returning from the International Space Station after 6 months in space, and this is just the beginning part of that article. Okay, so we're just going to read it first. After a 6-month stay on the International Space Station ISS, astronauts Tim Peake, Yuri Malenchenko and Timothy Kopra have finally returned home to Earth. Last week, British astronaut Tim Peake returned home from an incredible 6-month stay aboard the ISS alongside his crewmates Yuri Malenchenko and Timothy Kopra. He is the first British astronaut to have lived on the ISS. Now we are going to identify our 5 W's, our where, our who, our what, our why, and our when. So 5 W's. So what I've done is I've drawn arrows and I've taken an aspect of that 5W. So the first one is where. And we found that where they had been is they had been in space and they were on the ISS. So can you see there, I've actually written where, and then I've written a little explanation of the where aspect of that article, or that introduction. Then I've looked at who, and the who the story is about is Tim Peake, Yuri Malenchenko, and Timothy Kopra. So I've written their names there because that explains the who. The what is they return from space after 6 months in the ISS. So again, that is our what has happened in the story. What is the article about? Then we go to our why. Why is the story important? The story is important because it's about Tim Peake being the first British astronaut to have lived on the ISS. So that is our why section. And our when is when did they return? They returned last week. Now, if you look at any newspaper article, they should all have the 5 W's at the beginning. Okay, so this is how I want you to set it out. Now, I understand that there's quite a few of you that won't have printers to be able to print this off, which is absolutely fine. I'll explain on the next slide how you could lay out your work if you don't have a printer. So you can pause here and you can go through the example again just to check that you are clear on what you have to do. Okay, so this is the task. You have 2 introductory paragraphs from a newspaper report. One is about some person winning the lottery, and the other is about Roman coins that have been discovered. Now, what I would like you to do is the same thing that I did on the example. I want you to go through and find the 5 W's in your work. Now, like I said, if you don't have a printer, you can just write out the different sections that are the who, the what, the where, the when, and the why. So, for example, the who for the first article is Mr. and Mrs. Mills of Smith Lane. So Mr. and Mrs. Mills is our who the article is about. Okay, and you can just write that sentence in your books to say that this is the who part of the article, and then you can do the same for the other 5 W's, and then you go on to article 2 and you do the same for those 5 W's. Okay, and then write those very clearly in your book, so when you send them to me, I will be able to see very clearly how you've been getting on. If you are unsure of how to send me work on email, the best thing to do is ask an adult to take a picture of the work on their mobile phones. Then they can upload that to their computers and then email them to me. Okay, so that will be the best way to do that. Okay, so pause the video here and take your time. There's no time limit. Take your time going through this because it's really important that you understand how to identify the 5 W's. Okay, so task 2. So this is an article that is taken from a real newspaper about suffragettes, and it is about another incident that happened that caused quite a lot of commotion and a lot of controversy. So I'm going to read the article to you and then I will explain the task. An extraordinary incident marked the race for the Derby yesterday afternoon. As the horses were making for Tattenham Corner, a woman rushed out on the course in front of the King's horse Amna, and he put her hands above her head. The horse knocked her down and then turned a complete somersault on its jockey, Herbert Jones. When the animal recovered itself, Jones was dragged a few yards. He is suffering from concussion, and the woman, who had a suffragist flag wrapped around her waist and whose name is Emily Wilding Davidson, is in a very serious condition in Epsom Cottage Hospital. The King made immediate inquiries regarding his jockey, who had no broken bones. Okay, so there you can see that the suffragette Emily Wilding Davidson had actually stopped the race and actually stood in front of a horse, and it was coming towards her, and it obviously knocked her over, so she was in a bad way. And the horse was actually one of the King's horses, so she obviously was not, I would say, not very considerate of the King and his emotions at the time, or of the jockey. She just wanted her voice heard. Okay, and the jockey, who is the person who rides the horse, obviously was got hurt as well, so he was in quite a bad way too. Okay, so this is a real article about the suffragettes written in 1913, and it just shows how far the suffragettes were willing to go in order to get their voices heard. So what I'd like you to do first of all is identify the 5 W's in this article, and then I would like you to think of the incident in chapter 6 that we read today at the rally. can you have a go at writing the first few sentences for that article? Now, I don't expect you to write the whole paragraph as yet. I just want you to have a try at the first few sentences and then see how you go, okay? And just remember that it was in the village hall and it became a riot and ended with the police arresting Emily Pankhurst and the other suffragettes. So please send us this work and all the other tasks that I have set you. And I want you to remember we're giving out class chart points every day and certificates every week. And we want to have a huge list of certificates to give out and class chart points to give out every single day. Okay, so we look forward to receiving all your lovely work and I hope you enjoy this lesson. See you tomorrow.